Most people think the biggest threat to their marriage is a stranger, a coworker, a random DM, someone out there. But for Mark, the danger wasn't out there. It was sitting at his dining table, holding his daughter, wearing the title he had given with his whole heart, best friend. For 10 years, Mark and his wife Emma lived what looked like a solid life. A modest home, one beautiful little girl, and bills they were always chasing, but somehow paying. From the outside, nothing dramatic. Just another tired couple doing their best. On the inside, though, something much quieter and much more dangerous was growing. Not shouting, not cheating in the way people usually picture it, but silence, loneliness, and a desperate need to feel seen by someone. That someone slowly became Daniel, Mark's oldest friend, the boy who once punched a bully for him in middle school, the man who stood beside him as best man at his wedding, the Uncle Dan his daughter adored. So when Mark picked up his wife's phone one night, just to put it on the nightstand, and saw Daniel's name at the top of a wall of midnight confessions, everything he thought he knew about loyalty, friendship, and marriage suddenly cracked. Tonight, you're going to hear what happened next from Mark himself. He is going to tell you how a husband can be in the same house and still be absent, how a best friend can slowly become a spouse's safe place, how emotional lines get crossed long before physical ones do, and what it costs to try to rebuild trust when 3 hearts are already broken. If you've ever told yourself, it's just texting, it's just talking, they're just close friends, Mark's story is the warning you may not want but deeply need. Mark asked us to use his real name because he says if even one person hears this and chooses to listen to their partner before someone else becomes their safe place, then all this pain will mean something.
When my wife Emma started smiling at her phone again, I thought I should be happy for her. After all those dark months, after the panic attacks and the insomnia, I was just relieved to see even a flicker of light in her eyes. But the night I picked up her phone by mistake and saw my best friend Daniel S.'s name at the top of a wall of midnight messages, something inside me went very, very cold. I had trusted him with everything, my secrets, my business, my childhood. But I never imagined I'd one day ask myself a question that made me sick. How long has my best friend been my wife, a safe place instead of me? Emma and I had been married for 10 years when the cracks really began to show. On the outside, we had what people called a solid life, a modest house, 2 cars we were still paying off, and our little girl Lily, who was 7 and believed the world was made of glitter and bedtime stories. Inside our house, though, silence had become a third person in our marriage. It sat with us at dinner, lay between us in bed, followed us from room to room. It didn't start with shouting. It started with sighs. Those long, tired sighs Emma would let out when I walked through the door late from work. At first, I thought it was just stress. I had taken over a small logistics company from my father, and the numbers looked like a heart patient's chart. Sometimes flat, sometimes spiking, never stable. Just a few more months, I kept saying. Once I land that new contract, things will calm down. Emma would nod, but her eyes would drift past me to the stacks of unpaid bills on the hall table, or to the school notice reminding us about Lily's upcoming field trip that we hadn't paid for yet. The more anxious I became about money, the more I worked. The more I worked, the less I was home. And the less I was home, the more Emma seemed to shrink into herself. One night, I came home at 11:30 p.m. The house was dark except for the living room lamp. Emma was sitting on the couch, knees pulled to her chest, staring at nothing. The TV was on but muted, frozen on some cooking show. "You're still up?" I asked, dropping my keys into the bowl near the door. She flinched, actually flinched, at the sound of my voice, as if she hadn't heard me come in. Then she forced a smile that didn't touch her eyes. "Yeah, couldn't sleep." "Again?" I rubbed the back of my neck. "Did you take the melatonin?" She shrugged. "It doesn't do much anymore." I wanted to go to her, sit down, pull her into my arms, say something wise and comforting. Instead, I dropped onto the armchair opposite her, opened my laptop, and said the stupidest sentence I could have said. I just need to send this one email, okay? Her smile disappeared completely. Of course, she said quietly. You always do. I pretended not to hear the bitterness in her voice. I told myself I'd talk to her after the email, but by the time I closed the laptop, she'd gone to bed alone. Daniel had been in my life since we were 12. We met in middle school when he punched a bully for stealing my lunch. From then on, we were inseparable. He was the loud one, the charming one, the one who could walk into a room full of strangers and leave with 5 new best friends. I was the careful one, the planner, the guy who made sure we both got home in one piece. When I introduced him to Emma back when we were all in college, they clicked instantly. She laughed at his stupid jokes. He teased her about her obsession with organizing playlists. And I remember thinking, good, 2 people I love get along. That can only be good. On our wedding day, Daniel was my best man. He held the ring, straightened my tie, and whispered, "Don't screw this up, man. She's the one good decision you've ever made without me." We laughed, we hugged, and I meant it when I told him, "You're family." Years later, he still had a key to our house. He was Uncle Dan to Lily, the guy who showed up with ice cream, who built pillow forts, who turned any ordinary Sunday into an adventure. If I was running late, I'd often text him, "Can you check on them? I'll be home late again." And he always replied the same thing, "Of course, I've got your back." I believed him. I had no reason not to. The first time I noticed something was truly off. It was small. The kind of thing you would normally ignore if you weren't already tired and feeling guilty. I came home early one Tuesday. It was only 6 in the evening. The sun was still hanging low in a pale orange sky. I felt oddly proud walking up the driveway, carrying pizza boxes in both hands like some kind of sitcom dad. Tonight, I told myself, I'll put my phone away. I'll just be a husband and a father. I pushed the door open quietly, wanting to surprise them. From the hallway, I heard laughter. Emma's laughter. Real laughter, not the tired sighs she usually gave me. "I swear you're the only one who gets it," she was saying. Her voice was light, warm. Then I heard Daniel's voice. "If you ever need to talk, you know I'm here, right?" "I mean that, Em. Always." I froze. Not because the words themselves were wrong, they weren't, but because of how she replied. "I know. Honestly, I don't know what I'd do without you, Dan." Something in the way she said it, so soft, grateful, almost relieved, made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I stepped into the living room. Emma and Daniel were sitting on the couch, a bit closer than I was comfortable with, but not touching. There was a half-drunk cup of tea in front of her and an empty coffee mug in front of him. They both looked at me with that guilty, surprised look people get when you catch them talking about you. "Hey!" I lifted the pizza. "Look who's home early." Daniel grinned a little too brightly. "Well, well, the ghost lives." Emma's smile faded into something more controlled. "You're early," she said. I forced a laugh. "Don't sound so disappointed." But as I set the pizza on the table, something kept scratching at the back of my mind. Later, when we were alone in the kitchen, I asked, trying to sound casual, "So you and Dan seem to be hanging out a lot lately?" Emma rinsed a plate. Her back turned to me. "He just checks on us sometimes when you're busy. It's nice to have someone to talk to." "I'm someone," I said, and I instantly heard how pathetic that sounded. She sighed. "You're tired, Mark. Stressed. When you're here, you're not really here. He just listens. That's all. Just listens." 2 harmless words that felt anything but harmless. It might have ended there if it wasn't for the phone. A few weeks later, I was running late again. Traffic was a nightmare. My phone was at 3%, and every single red light felt personal. I got home close to midnight, my body buzzing with stress and caffeine. The house was dark. I towed my shoes off quietly and headed to the bedroom, rehearsing an apology in my head. "Sorry, Em. Another long one. I'll make it up to you this weekend. The bedroom door was slightly open. Emma was asleep, curled up on her side, her phone lying next to her pillow, its screen glowing softly. A message notification pulsed on the screen. I shouldn't have looked. I know that. But if our trust was still intact, I wouldn't have even been tempted. I set my bag down and picked up the phone just to put it on the nightstand. The notification expanded at my touch. I saw the name first, Daniel, and beneath it, the preview of his latest message. You don't deserve to cry yourself to sleep. If he really saw you, he'd never let you feel this alone. My stomach dropped so fast I had to sit down. I unlocked the phone. Her passcode was our daughter Lily's birth date. I'd always known it. But this time, it felt like I was breaking into a room that used to be mine. The chat with Daniel was pinned to the top. I scrolled. 2 years. 2 years of messages. Some were light and jokey, sure. Memes, silly photos. But in between, there were whole nights of confessions. Emma pouring out her fears, her loneliness, her anger at me. Details she never once told me. Her panic attack in the supermarket when she felt like she couldn't breathe. The nights she sat on the bathroom floor, crying silently so Lily wouldn't hear. And Daniel replying with exactly what she needed to hear. You're not crazy, you're just carrying too much alone. He doesn't understand your worth, but I do. If you were mine, I'd never let you feel this small. If you were mine. The words blurred as my eyes stung. I kept scrolling, my heart pounding in my chest. What I discovered next changed everything. If you've ever felt that pit in your stomach, that feeling of being an outsider in your own life, you know what I was going through. Let me know in the comments if you've ever had a similar experience. And if you want to know what happened next, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. Thanks for watching. Sometimes I think you're the only person who really sees me. Maybe that's because I've been in love with you longer than he has. The room spun. I had to put the phone down before I dropped it. All the air seemed to leave my lungs. In one rush, the last few years rearranged themselves in my mind, like puzzle pieces snapping perfectly into place. The late-night check-ins, the way she lit up when he texted, the way she relaxed when he walked into a room, her shoulders dropping, her breathing getting easier. He hadn't just been supporting her. He had been slowly, patiently building a world where he was the hero and I was the villain, and I'd given him the key. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay on my back, staring at the ceiling, listening to Emma's slow breathing beside me. My mind replayed every message I'd read until they all blurred into one long, ugly sentence. Your best friend thinks he could be a better husband to your wife than you are. Part of me wanted to explode, to shake Emma awake, shove the phone in her face, demand answers, demand apologies. But another part of me, the part that still loved her so much it hurt, kept whispering, how did it get this far without you noticing? Around 5 a.m., I got up and wandered into the kitchen. The sky outside was that grey-blue colour that comes just before dawn, when the world feels like it's holding its breath. I poured myself coffee I didn't really want and sat at the table, phone in my hands. I typed a message to Daniel. We need to talk, just you and me, today. His reply came almost instantly, as if he'd been awake, waiting. Sure, everything okay? I stared at the question for a long time. Then I typed, no. We met that afternoon at the small bar near our old high school. The kind of place where the floor is sticky but the nostalgia is strong. It had been our spot for years. We'd celebrated promotions here, mourned breakups, watched games, made plans for the future. When I walked in, Daniel was already there, leaning on the bar, 2 beers waiting in front of him. He turned, grinned reflexively, then froze when he saw my face. Hey man, you look like... We're not doing the small talk thing today, I said. My voice sounded strange to my own ears, too calm. He studied me, his eyes narrowing. Okay, what's going on? I slid his phone across the bar. His eyes flicked down, and I saw the exact moment he recognized Emma's chat thread on the screen. His face went pale. For a long moment, the only sound between us was the low murmur of other people's conversations and the clink of glasses. "How long?" I asked. He swallowed. "Mark, How? Long?" He swallowed again, hard. "About 2 years," he said quietly. The words hit harder because he didn't even try to lie. I laughed once, a sharp, humorless sound. 2 years? 2 years you've been what? Her therapist? Her secret boyfriend? My replacement? "Don't do that," he snapped, some of his old fire flaring. "You weren't there for her. Someone had to be." "Someone had to be," I repeated. "Someone had to listen to my wife cry about me at 3 a.m, so it might as well be the guy who used to share my French fries." His jaw clenched. "Do you have any idea what it's like to watch your best friend's marriage fall apart in slow motion? To see her breaking and you just working more and more, disappearing?" "Yes," I shot back. "I was there, remember?" "No, you weren't," he said. "For 2 years, she would call me because she was afraid if she called you, you'd just say, 'I'm in a meeting,' and hang up." That stung because there was truth in it. Ugly, undeniable truth. "I never told her to fall in love with me," he continued. "I never planned any of this. It just happened. She needed someone. I was there. You weren't. And you're just the innocent hero in all this?" I asked. "The selfless best friend who just happened to confess he'd loved her longer than I had?" He swallowed again. "I shouldn't have sent that. I know. But you read everything, right? You saw the nights she was shaking so hard she couldn't type straight. You saw when she said she didn't feel like she existed in her own home. I saw you telling my wife, 'If you were mine, I'd never let you feel this small.'" His eyes filled with something that looked like guilt and resentment tangled together. "Because it's true," he whispered. "I would never have made her feel like she was just another item on your to-do list." For a second, my vision swam red. I had a brief, vivid image of smashing the beer glass against his jaw. Instead, I gripped the edge of the bar so hard my knuckles turned white. "So, what was the plan?" I asked. "You wait until I finally burn out? Until we divorce? You swoop in as the savior?" "There was no plan," he said. "I just cared. Too much. And yes, I crossed a line. But you need to ask yourself why there even was a line for me to cross. It was a low blow. And the worst part was that it landed. For a moment, we just stared at each other. Two men who had once been boys trading baseball cards, now standing on opposite sides of a fault line I hadn't seen forming. "Are you sleeping with her?" I asked. The words tasted like acid. His eyes widened. "No, I swear to you, Mark. I've never touched her. Not once. Not even a hug that lasted too long." I told myself that was the one boundary I wouldn't cross. He said it like it was a badge of honor. Like emotional intimacy wasn't sometimes worse. "And if I hadn't looked at that phone?" I asked. "What then?" Silence. The answer sat in the space between us, heavy and obvious. Finally, I said, "I'm going to make this very clear. You do not talk to my wife again. You do not text her. You do not answer if she calls. You are out of our lives, Daniel." He flinched as if I'd hit him. "You can't do that to her," he said. "She'll think I abandoned her. She already thinks I did," I cut in. "And that's on you as much as it's on me. I get my share of the blame. I was absent. I was blind. I made her feel alone. I will spend the rest of my life trying to fix that. But you don't get to keep being her safe place after telling her you in love with her. That's not friendship. That's waiting in the wings." His eyes glistened. "She's going to hate you for this," he whispered. "Maybe," I said. "But at least this time, she'll be hating me for something I actually did." I picked up my untouched beer, dropped some cash on the counter, and walked out without looking back. I knew that if I saw the boy I grew up with standing there looking lost, I might hesitate. And I couldn't afford hesitation anymore. Confronting Emma was harder. When I got home that night, Lily was coloring at the kitchen table, her tongue sticking out in concentration. Emma was at the stove, stirring a pot mechanically, her eyes far away. "Hey, sweetheart," I said, kissing Lily's head. Daddy, she beamed. You're home before it's dark. The knife in my chest twisted a little more. Can you go play in your room for a bit, Lily? I asked softly. Mum and I need to talk. She pouted. Am I in trouble? No, of course not. I forced a smile. This is grown-up stuff. Boring, she declared, hopping off the chair. Okay. We waited until her door closed. Emma didn't turn around. She kept stirring the sauce that didn't need stirring anymore. Did you talk to him? She asked quietly. For a second, my heart stopped. How do you know? She laughed, a bitter, broken sound. Because he texted me earlier. Mark knows. I'm sorry. Then he blocked me. She turned the stove off and finally faced me. Her eyes were red-rimmed as if she'd already cried and run out of tears. Before you start, she said, her voice shaking, I need you to understand something. I read the messages, I said. It came out harsher than I intended. She flinched. Of course you did. You poured your heart out to my best friend, Emma. For 2 years, you told him things you never told me. You told him you felt invisible, that I didn't care, that he was the only one who listened. He told you he loved you. You told him you didn't know what you'd do without him. How am I supposed to understand that? She held my gaze for a moment, then dropped it. Her fingers twisted the dish towel in her hands. Because you left me long before I ever texted him, she whispered. I opened my mouth to protest, but the words wouldn't come. I know you were working for us, she continued. I know you were exhausted and terrified and doing your best. I'm not blind, Mark. But do you know what it feels like to sit in this house every night and listen to our daughter ask, when is Daddy coming home? And have no answer? Do you know what it feels like to have a panic attack at 2 a.m. and see your husband sleeping through it on the couch with his laptop open? Her voice cracked on the last word. Why didn't you tell me? I asked, hating how weak it sounded. I did, she said, 100 times. I told you I was drowning. I told you I was scared. And you said, just a few more months. You said, don't be dramatic. You told me we were a team, but it felt like I was holding the whole weight while you ran in a different direction. And Daniel was just, what, a lifeboat? I asked. She wiped her cheek with the back of her hand. He started as a friend, she said. He'd check in when you were late, ask how I was. He remembered things. He listened. At first it felt harmless, comfortable. I thought, he's your best friend. If I talk to him, in a way I'm still connected to you. Ooh, she laughed sadly. Then one day I realized I was telling him things about our marriage I hadn't even admitted to myself. And when he told you he loved you, I asked, what did that feel like? She closed her eyes, like someone finally saw me. The answer was both honest and devastating. Did you love him? The question came out quieter than I expected. She didn't answer right away. When she did, her voice was barely there. I loved what he was giving me that you weren't, she said. Attention, validation, safety. I don't know if it was him or just not being alone anymore. Did you ever meet him alone? Physically? Did anything happen? No. Her eyes shot open, wide. Never. I swear to you, Mark, there was never a physical affair. I set that line and I stuck to it. But emotionally, tears filled her eyes again. Emotionally, I crossed lines I never should have. I know that. I know I betrayed you. I hate myself for it more than you ever could. We stood there in silence, the space between us filled with years of unsaid words and messages sent to the wrong person. I told him he's out of our lives, I said finally. You won't talk to him again, ever. She nodded once, swallowing hard. I figured, it's what I deserve. This isn't just about what you deserve, Emma, I said. It's about what we want to be for our daughter. She doesn't deserve parents who hate each other, but pretend for her sake. She doesn't deserve to grow up thinking this is what marriage looks like. She flinched. So what are you saying? Divorce? The word hung in the air like a guillotine. I'm saying I need time, I replied. I need to decide if this is something we can rebuild, or if we've been standing on rubble for years and just didn't notice. I won't make that decision tonight when everything is so raw. But things can't go back to how they were. That much I know. She nodded slowly, tears spilling over. Whatever you decide, I'll accept it, she whispered. I broke something I can't unbreak. The weeks that followed were some of the hardest of my life. Daniel stayed away. His silence was louder than his presence had ever been. No more random visits. No more Uncle Dan laughs from the living room. Our daughter Lily asked about him at first. Where's Uncle Dan? Did he go on a trip? He's busy, I'd say, my throat tight. I wasn't ready to explain to my 7-year-old that sometimes the people she loves most make choices that hurt the people she loves most. Emma and I became cautious roommates. We shared a house, but not a bed. She took our bedroom. I moved to the guest room down the hall. We still parented together, homework, dinner, bath time. But there was a new politeness between us that felt like a stranger was wearing my wife's face. One evening, a few weeks in, I found myself sitting in my car outside the house long after I'd parked. My hands were clenched on the steering wheel, my jaw tight. I didn't want to go inside and pretend everything was normal. I didn't want to go anywhere else either. So I did something I hadn't done in years. I called a therapist. In the first session, I talked for 45 minutes straight about my father's expectations, about the company, about the way I'd always believed being a good man meant being a good provider, about how I measured love in hours billed and problems solved, not in moments of eye contact and quiet conversation. And how did that work for you? The therapist asked gently. Well, I said, my voice cracking. My wife fell in love with my best friend, so not great. We both laughed, though there was no humor in it. He didn't tell me it was all my fault. He didn't tell me it was all hers either. He helped me see how slowly, over time, Emma and I had built separate islands and called it a marriage, and how Daniel had built a bridge to her island, while I kept trying to build a taller wall around mine. After a few sessions, I asked Emma if she would consider couples therapy. She hesitated, then nodded. If there's even a 1% chance we can fix this, I want to try, she said. But if you decide you can't forgive me, I'll understand. I don't know if I can forgive you, I said honestly. But I know I'm tired of not even trying to understand you. Therapy was not a magical montage of breakthroughs. It was ugly, slow, and painful. We both heard things we didn't want to hear. Emma admitted how long she had felt like a single parent. I admitted how often I had chosen the comfort of spreadsheets over the discomfort of emotional vulnerability. She talked about the first message she sent to Daniel at midnight, hands shaking, thinking she'd get no reply. I talked about the first time I realized I was jealous of my own friend's relationship with my wife and did nothing about it. You didn't create her loneliness, the therapist said to me one day. But you didn't notice it in time either, and that matters. To be fair, she added another day to Emma, he didn't make you text someone else at 3 a.m. instead of waking him up and saying, I'm drowning. You made that choice, and that matters too. We started setting rules. Rule 1, total transparency with communication. No more hidden chats, no more secret late-night messages with anyone about our marriage. Rule 2, 2 nights a week, no work after 7 p.m. It sounds simple, but for us, it was revolutionary. It's a long road, and some days are still harder than others, but for the first time in years, we're walking it together. Thanks for listening to our story. If you're going through something similar, remember you're not alone, and professional help can make a world of difference. Please consider subscribing for more stories about navigating life's toughest challenges. She remembers the first message she sent to Daniel at midnight. Her hands were shaking. She was sure she'd get no reply. I remember the first time I felt a pang of jealousy, watching my own wife with my best friend and doing absolutely nothing about it. You didn't create her loneliness, my therapist told me one day, but you didn't notice it in time either, and that matters. Then to my wife, Emma, she said, he didn't make you text someone else at 3 in the morning instead of waking him up. You made that choice, and that matters too. So we started setting rules. Rule 1, total transparency. No more hidden chats, no more secret late-night messages about our marriage with anyone else. Rule 2, 2 nights a week, no work after 7 p.m, and absolutely no phones at the dinner table. If the office caught fire, it could burn. Rule 3 was the hardest. If either of us felt the urge to emotionally escape by confiding in someone else, we had to say it out loud, not as an accusation, but as a warning. I feel tempted to talk to someone else about this instead of you. That means something is wrong with us. Slowly, tiny, fragile strands of trust began to grow back. One night, months later, I came home and found Emma on the couch with a photo album. She was staring at a picture from our wedding. Daniel was right there beside us, laughing, his arm around my shoulders. "I've been avoiding this one," she said softly. For the first time, I let myself mourn, not just the betrayal, but the friendship I had lost. "I miss him," I said, surprising myself. Emma looked at me, surprised too. "I do too," she admitted, "but I miss the version of him who was just your friend." We sat in silence for a moment. I finally asked, bracing myself, "Do you ever think about him?" "Of course," she said, "but not like before. Now I just feel sad, ashamed, and in a twisted way, grateful. Because if that hadn't happened, we might never have been forced to see how broken we were." Lying in bed that night, she whispered into the darkness, "Do you think you'll ever forgive me?" I looked at the ceiling. "I don't think forgiveness is a switch," I said. "I think it's a road. And today, I'm closer than I was yesterday." She turned toward me. "I know I don't deserve another chance," she whispered, "but I'm still going to spend every day trying to earn it." Something in my chest loosened. For the first time in months, I reached for her hand. We never spoke to Daniel again. I heard he moved to another city, started over. I don't hate him anymore. Hate takes too much energy. Now, I just feel a distant regret for the friend I lost long before I even knew he was gone. Emma and I, we aren't the couple we pretend to be on social media. We're not a perfect, inspirational story. We are two flawed people who almost lost each other by looking away at the worst possible time. But we're also the couple who now sits down every Sunday and really talks. About fears, dreams, bills, and the nights we still feel lonely even when we're side by side. We learned that silence isn't peace. It's a warning. Sometimes I still wake up with that old panic. I see his message to her in my mind. "If you were mine, I'd never let you feel this small." And I whisper into the darkness, "You are mine, and my job is to make sure being mine never makes you feel small again." Emma will stir, half asleep, and ask what I said. I'll turn to her, push the hair from her face, and say the only thing that matters now. "Tell me what you're thinking. I'm listening." Because the greatest betrayal isn't when someone else tries to be your partner as safe place. It's when you willingly give up that job without even noticing. And if you're lucky enough to get a second chance, you guard that place with everything you have. Thanks for listening. If our story resonated with you, please consider subscribing.
Mark didn't come here to tell you he's a perfect husband. He came here to admit that for a long time, he gave up the most important job in his marriage without even realizing it. He thought being a good man meant being a good provider, long hours, more money, a future that looked secure on paper. Meanwhile, Emma was quietly drowning in the present, panic attacks, insomnia, feeling invisible in her own home. And the person who threw her the lifeline wasn't her husband. It was his best friend. Daniel never touched her. There was no hotel room, no lipstick on a collar. But for 2 years, he knew her fears, her tears, her late-night thoughts better than the man she had vowed her life to. and that is its own kind of betrayal. What Mark and Emma decided to do after that wasn't simple, or pretty, or guaranteed. They cut Daniel out of their lives. They slept in separate rooms. They sat in therapy rooms and said things they should have said years earlier at their own kitchen table. They made rules about phones, about work, about who gets to hear the most vulnerable parts of their hearts. And slowly, they started walking the long road called forgiveness, one hard conversation at a time. They are not a fairy tale ending. They are a work in progress. Two people who nearly lost each other, now trying, on purpose, to listen before silence moves in again. If you've watched this far, this is where the story turns back to you. Take a breath. Then ask yourself honestly, is there someone outside my relationship who knows my partner's pain better than I do? Is there someone who knows my secrets and frustrations better than the person I promised to build a life with? Have I quietly let someone else become my safe place because it feels easier than talking to the one I love? Emotional affairs rarely start with "I love you." They start with "I get you. I'm here if you need to talk, and don't worry, I won't tell anyone." If this story has made you uncomfortable, that might be your heart's way of saying, something needs to change before this becomes my story too. In the comments, no names, no identifying details. Answer just one question. Is there a conversation I've been avoiding with my partner that I need to have before someone else has it with them? If you're willing to be brave, write it down. You don't have to share the details, just the decision to stop looking away. And if you want more real stories like Mark's, stories about friendship, betrayal, second chances, and the quiet choices that make or break a marriage, subscribe to Borrowed Wisdom Stories and turn on the notifications. Listen to the people who have already paid the price for the mistakes you're still calling no big deal. Because sometimes the biggest betrayal isn't when someone else tries to become your partner. More safe place. It is when you walk away from that place yourself. Tonight, before you scroll to the next video, look at the person you love and simply say, "Tell me what you're thinking. I'm listening." Sometimes that one sentence is where a completely different ending begins.